So again here, hello everyone. I really want to welcome you to attend this 15th IIOA webinar. And I'm Kui Shuang Feng, the member of IIOA Council, and also the lead for the IIOA webinar series. So today, we are glad to have Dr. Josef Richter, Dr. Bert Steenge, and Dr. Rossella Bardazzi as our today's speakers. So Joseph now retired and spent most of his professional life in I/O statistics and empirical I/O analysis. He created the first I/O model of the inforum type for Austria back to 1972. Joseph had teaching obligations at the universities of Innsbruck and Linz from 1983 onwards. His work has focused mainly on the empirical foundation of I/O analysis and on the problematic relationship between the producers of data and the empirical economists. He has contributed to many IIOA conferences, and his publications cover very different applications of input-output techniques. Joseph was a founding member of the International Input-Output Association and was its first chair, served from 1988 to 2006. So he's our long-serving members and also contributed greatly to our association. For Bert studied at the University of Groningen Faculty of Economics, specializing in economics, econometrics. He defended his PhD dissertation in 1980, and in 1986, he became full professor of economics at the University of Utrecht. Faculty of Public Administration and Public Policy. So in 2007, he returned to his alma mater, the University of Groningen, as a emeritus. And he has had a lifelong interest in input-output modeling, and his work has focused mainly on the theoretical side of the topics in input-output analysis, and he has contributed to many IIOA conferences, as well as being involved in related activities. So his publications cover several fields and subfields of present-day the IIO modeling. So Bert served as a council member from 2007 to 2015. For Rossella, she is an associate professor of economics at the University of Florence, Italy, and she has devoted her research activity to theoretical and empirical analysis of macroeconometric and micro simulation models. She belongs to the International Research Network of the Macroeconometric Models in Forum and has contributed to the development of Italian multi-sectoral model. And her research interests include the development of multi-sectoral and micro simulation models, bilateral trade models, and also demand system for household consumption, energy demand of enterprises and households. Rossella has served as a council member of the International Input-Output Association from 2018 to 2023. So today, our three speakers will give a webinar on two of a IO archive. So the presentation will take about 30 to 40 minutes and will be followed with a Q&A for 15 to 20 minutes. So I think, Joseph, are you going to start?
No, it's Rossella to start.
Oh,
No,
Rossella to start. Okay, please go ahead. Yeah, Rossella, please. Yeah.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting us to give this webinar, and also to thank all the participants who are here with us to watch this event. I'm briefly introducing today's webinar, and in particular, I would like to represent the role of the Council of the International IO Association in this project. This is a brief outline of today's webinar. So I will outline the purpose of the project and also some organizational aspects. Then I will leave the floor to Bert and Josef, who are the real players in this project, and who will then explain the principles behind it and also the main features. The results that have been achieved so far, and we'll also give a practical demonstration of the functionalities of the repository. Finally, some thoughts on possible upcoming developments of this archive will conclude the webinar. Next, please. So the IO Historical Archives project was inspired by two main goals. First of all, the more short-term goal was to rescue relevant materials from IO analysis that were in danger of being lost forever. And second, as a more long-term goal, to make these resources available for research, and thus to create a searchable database for researchers already working in the field of IO analysis, and also for researchers in other disciplinary areas who might be interested in IO methods. Next, please. So as I said, the IIOA Council decided to take up this proposal that came from Josef and Bert, and decided to support the project also with financial resources. The first decision was taken several years ago in 2021, but then this support has been reiterated several times with further decisions and funds. From an operational point of view, I have had the honor of being the liaison officer between the planners of the archive and the council of the association. And from this privileged position, I have been able to follow the development of the archives and then hand over this task to my colleague Francesca Severini, who is also, I see, in the participant list. Since last January, when my term as a member of the council came to an end. So now I'm pleased to leave the floor to Bert and Josef to show you the details of the IO Historical Archives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rossella. It was a very good introduction. And now we go a little bit more in detail about the general principles and the characteristics. Well, the focus of the historical archive should be on materials which can be made available in digital form. So this is already a little bit of an indication what we should think of. We should think of it as a huge kind of library with various documents, but it all should be able to be digitized. And the very important is, I think, basically that we are striving for a very broad coverage. I mentioned our regional economics, environmental and mathematical economics, and some other disciplines. But also you might think of, let's say, the history of economic thought, which is also covered. And then you are entering in those, the historical questions is, for instance, can a tableau économique a forerunner of Leontief type systems, yes or no? So we can handle also that. Efficiency, of course, in working with all this huge documentation is essential, and Josef in a few minutes will guide us there. And also because also we are striving towards a kind of international connection, it means also that having access is an important factor, and we have various languages, etc. So also access is important. Next slide, please. Thank you. Then what should be collected? Well, material from the early days of input-output analysis, and of course we have scientific publications, working papers, dissertations, input-output tables, supply use, SAMs, etc. And also there is a little bit difficult to locate, and also this is a factor that we will meet quite often, that possibly or probably there are copies of certain publications lying around, but hard to find. So then there is another aspect why we are interested in this kind of broad coverage. As you may recall, and perhaps also the somewhat older persons among us, there has been in the early days a kind of debate on the position of input-output analysis in the spectrum of economic models, so to speak. So basically, this meant should we more or less have our own structure, journals, conferences, etc., or should we try to be part of some very big mainstream and try to find our position there? Well, if you look at all the material that is here, and this is also coming out and is dated, then you will also find this discussion reflected in the papers that have been selected and are present. So also there is another side, so to speak, on what we are doing. Next slide, please. So what was achieved so far? And this, of course, is a very important point. And one aspect is contact with the pioneers were established, and that is very important. That is also really a time dimension. Many of the pioneers also made valuable material available to us, and this material also will be put into the system, into the systems. And then access to a number of private archives was gained, also quite often with older members. Many relevant documents, about 1,000, have already been digitized, so it's quite a lot. A majority of that is papers being presented, etc., but also various other structures. And then probably what is so we have the pioneers, but what also is very important is what is coming here, and what Josef will talk about in a few minutes. There is this web databases. So all these, let's say 1,000 pieces or items have to be cataloged, registered, etc. And also they must be accessible. And that is a big task, but okay, we are making progress, I hope. So then the web databases, and we'll talk a little bit about this. This is really the crux of what we have been doing. Then there is another aspect. The next slide, please. Well, in the old days, let's say the 1950s, etc., there were also input-output conferences, and these conferences were, let's say, more difficult to access and to get published, etc., as they are now. There are many outlets, etc. So we had the early papers, part of them was published, but also part of them not. And we have the very modern, let's say, post-2000 publications, and there was a gap. And the gap was could be linked to, let's say, the input-output conferences, so the majority. So the line is picked up. That means getting rid of the gap, or filling up the gap. Well, we have the Geneva Conference, 1971, and then until almost 2000, the New Delhi one. And this material, which is now also being digitized, etc., really fills up this hole. So we have a very large and also more or less continuous set of data available. And part was this happened to be available, so it was not cleaned up, what also with some collections happened. But also we have now this very nice over time registration of what has been going on. Next slide, please. Well, the big challenge, it sounds like a detective novel perhaps, but it is really serious and very hard work, is complying with the provisions of copyright. And that takes a lot of time. For example, how do you know if a certain paper that has been published on a conference has not been published in series or whatever? So you really have to check a lot of sources to see if a paper has been published, but also suppose the author gets a lot of indications, changes, this and that, and we have a paper that is looking very much like the previous one, but is it different or is it not? So here you really need contact with people who can read stories very well, but also with lawyers. And so part of the effort was asking the lawyers to give their view on what is it similar or not. And this is a very labor-intensive work, finding the lawyers and also checking each individual paper. Now, I think we are now ready for an other, basically the pièce de résistance, so to speak. Josef, after that, I perhaps, depending on time, will perhaps come back for a moment, but now I would give the floor, I think, to you, Josef.
Thank you very much, Bert. I will try to give you a few examples on how to use the archive. The first step is go to the website of the association and log in as a member. And now let's go to the IIOA archive. And this will lead you immediately to the title page, where you will find some general information about the archive and some hints on how to use the archive. If you want to have more information, how to use it, you will find a PDF document here called Article Search, Some Directions, which will give you many hints how to use the archive in an efficient way. Before you can proceed, however, you have to agree with the terms of use. And again, here we will find the details and the full text of the terms of use as a PDF document. The main provision is that the use of the archive is limited to scholarship, research, and non-profit purposes, and that you have to agree that you will not make any commercial use of the material you found in the archive. If you agree with these principles, please just press the button Accept. And you will be taken directly to the central page of the archive. This page offers you access to the information available in the archive. As you can see, this page contains all the usual bibliographic information for scientific documents: title, authors, volumes, editors, publishers, when was it published, where was it published, etc. And you can use each of the fields of this system for search purposes, but advanced search is also possible. And now I will try to demonstrate some of the possibilities of searching with the help of a few simple examples. In my first example, I want to get information about all the papers that were presented in the 79 Input-Output conference held in Innsbruck. And for this purpose, I go to the field Conference Year, type in 1979, and press Search. And here we are. We found 114 articles, which means those 114 articles of presentations at the Innsbruck conference are already included in the archive. If you want, you can browse through all these papers to get more information. You see, there's plenty of information on the material that was presented 79 in Innsbruck. Before starting a new search, you have to press again Article Search to terminate this search. And you have to clear the form because there still might another 79 there. Clear the form, then you have again an empty page, and you can start a second search. And my second example corresponds to the most common form of searching, the search for the contributions of a specific author. Therefore, let's go to the field Author, and now you can select a name. Let's select Bardazzi, Rossella, and search. Oh, and in the archive at the present stage of development, we found 3 contributions by Rossella. Let's have a closer look. The first one is a joint contribution by her, Maurizio Grassino and Ernesto Longobardi. The paper was presented in Kiste in the year 1989. And as you can see here, this paper, a very similar paper, was afterwards published in Economic Systems Research. Let's have a look on the second paper we found. It was also a joint publication by Rossella and Stefano Barioli on modeling profits in a multisectoral model. It was a contribution to the Seville conference. The conference year was 1993. So contributions to the 10th International Conference on Input-Output Techniques. The third one was also a joint publication by Rossella and Maurizio Grassini. It was also a paper given at the Seville Conference 1903. And you see all the bibliographic details which you need. Also some keywords are available here. If you're interested in, say, always, this is an interesting paper, I want perhaps to include it in my bibliography, you can just go to this button and print all this information. You see, all the information which is available in the web database can be printed, and you can download this information or print it whatsoever you want. Now we are back. Let's have another example. Again, we have to press Article Search. We have to clear the form. And now we're ready for a new search. My third example is to devote it to a very simple form of what might be called advanced search. I want to search for an article by Sir Richard Stone, but I have the additional information that this article I'm looking for was given the Input-Output Conference 74 held in Vienna. Now let's search, and here we are. It's a very famous piece of, well, related research. As Bert has already mentioned, we are looking at input-output in a much broader sense. Random walks through the social sciences, input-output and Markov models in social research. It was a paper given at the 6th International Conference in Vienna, 74. And when you now look on the field access, you'll see, oh, there's a PDF available. And here you can see, you even can download this paper. Let's do this now. Just press on download. And here we are. Here we have all the 52 pages of this paper that was presented in Vienna. And you see the quality is fairly good. You can read it, you can download it, you can save it, or what you want to do. And I think that's the main feature, what we are aiming at, to make such valuable information easily accessible to users. Now let's go to my last example. Before we go to this example again, I have to press article search. I have to clear the form. Now I'm ready for a new search. And the basic idea behind my fourth example is to show the different options as far as access to material is concerned. Let's again start with an ordered search. You see, it's a string search. You don't have to write the full name. Let's look for Jan Oosterhaven. Okay, here we are. We found 4 articles. Let's have a closer look at those articles. The first article was a paper given Keshte, 89, changing interdependency between EC economies. And if you now look at the field access, you see it's restricted. We have the paper, but we can't make it available to users because the paper is marked as not for quotation or preliminary. And if the author doesn't want to make it available, okay, then we do not make it available. Let's go to the third result. That's a paper, a joint paper by Oosterhaven, Michael Sonis, and Geoffrey Hewings. There's a title, Spatial Economic Structure and Structural Changes. And here, if you go to access, you see the entry link restricted, which means we can provide a link, but somehow the use of this information is restricted. But in any case, you can open the link. And this will lead you to the webpage of our publisher. You see this paper was later on published in Economic Systems Research. And link restricted now means that access is not granted free to everybody. But in this case, the paper was published in Economic Systems Research, which also means that you, as an IIO member, have free access. Let's go back. Let's have a look on the fourth paper we found. It's again a joint paper. Oosterhaven van der Linden was a contribution to the Seville Conference 93. And if you look on the field access, you see link unrestricted, which means we can provide a link, and what you find there, here, open link, this information is available to everybody. It's unrestricted access. Okay, these are the main four options. Either restricted because it's preliminary or it was published in a book and we don't have a link, link unrestricted, link restricted, or the most favorable case that we can make the PDF directly available. I hope these four examples have given you a little impression of how you can use the information that is already available in the archive. I must say we are very grateful to Elmar Handelhofer that he created this nice web database with its many search options, and to Anu Venkatesh for carrying out all the copyright checks, which was a very, very labor-intensive exercise to find out whether a conference contribution was later on published in a journal or in a book. In this context, it needs to be stressed that our strategy has always been to avoid copyright infringements as far as possible. Therefore, you will not find the possibility to download a paper. The paper with a similar content was later published in a journal or in a book. However, in many of those cases, we are able to provide a link to the publication. At present, the archive contains 650 contributions to the early input-output conferences, and about 50% of these contributions can be directly downloaded. And for more than 200 contributions in addition, we offer links that lead to these papers. So the big majority of the contributions to the I/O conference is already accessible. A small limitation should be mentioned. As you have seen, you can already search for keywords, usual string search, but the keywords are only derived from the titles. There is no elaborate keyword systems behind them, like this is the case in most scientific journals. We're happy to say that we have more than 560 visits to the archive, and that quite a number of papers were already downloaded by our members. At the end of my small presentation, I should add that the historical archive is by no means the first attempt to create such a knowledge repository for input-output related documents in digital forms. There are also a few examples in US universities and in the Netherlands. But what we are striving for, however, is a much broader coverage, and above all, that the archive is not dependent on a single person who might retire. Or in other words, what we are aiming at is continuity. Okay, that's what I wanted to say, and now I should ask Bert to continue.
Thank you, Josef, for this very clear exhibition of what the system, how the system works, what it can do, and all the options you have as a reader. Well, time marches on, of course, and possible next steps also have to be discussed. And this is integrating material that is already has been digitized, but is waiting for a specific form, a specific place, etc. And also, again, the necessary copyright checks. Then we have adding the possibility of adding more links to the system, and this could work in several cases, that in a certain institute or a certain place there is certain materials, and if we want to have access to those materials, usually it means talking to the owners and see if a link can be made. The links are regularly done, but it also needs a lot of bibliographic details that have to be filled in. And so in this sense, you have a connection, and at the same time, it is quite clear what the details are, so what you are looking for, perhaps. So this is one way of, let's say, extending the scope of our archive. Then there is the members again. We will ask them, and of course, if you ask people or members for what kind of material they might have, we must also have a very good idea of the type of material that we would like to have. And this is a debate that still is going on, and it will require some time, I guess. So you have the personal support is necessary to integrate all the material that members could have. And then there was something interesting that happened the last few months. A very well-known British input-output scholar had died. And basically, then he had a wonderful library, but basically the problem was that for several reasons, the room had to be emptied. So there was an enormous urgency suddenly to get rid, if I may put it like this, of this archive, to have the rooms occupied for some other purposes. Well, and as luck would have it, there was a very good contact with a lady from Spain. And basically what happens, she connected us with her superiors, and Josef and myself, we also looked around a little bit for, cannot we, given the time pressure, make a donation? And we convinced the input-output seniors that for a very little, very small amount of money, we could pass on this wonderful library to our Spanish friends. And this is basically what happened. Well, this was just time inspired. Time was of the essence. So this is typically a point that we might wish to discuss in the broader forum. But anyway, for one time it worked, and well, I think we gave the library a nice place now for further existence. Then is if I may have, there is next please, next slide please. Well, this is something that is a nice comment, you might say, on a very famous dissertation. This is Leontief's dissertation, and the year is 1927 and 1928. Leontief, the letter to the left is a personal letter. Leontief offers here his dissertation. And that takes some time, and almost a year later it is okay, and he gets his title. There were very, his readers, his referees, so to speak, were very important, and those men at those times, for example, von Bortkiewicz, a very well-known person there, but also Werner Sombart, an economic historian, which became also well-known via various channels. So there also, you might wonder a little bit why it took so long, a year before approval of the manuscript. Well, basically it was, Leontief came from a country in turmoil, the emerging Soviet Union there, and also it was his age. He was, if you do the calculations, it was something like, well, 22, something like that. And isn't that a little bit young to write such a very novel and very brilliant PhD? So several things had to be cleaned up, and you can make your own estimation by asking access to this, to the set of documents. And basically we got access to it via Humboldt University, where it is located, and So we have a permission via this channel that I just talked about to, well, work with this material. Then the next sheet, please. That is a very curious document. You will see a report on research for 1953, and it was a report where for the first time a novel dynamic model was presented, discussed, etc. And also exercises were done and were reported on. Only the model didn't quite behave as people expected. So the model showed that still a lot had to be done. And now the interesting thing comes along. If you would like to consult this report on research, then basically you ask it, the library system, wherever in the world, and they will tell you, yes, it is somewhere, we will look for it, etc. And after some time you get, sorry, we could not locate it, or we could not find it. So access was very difficult for this manuscript until, I got a note that it was for sale somewhere in London, and I bought it. So this is also a way to fill up your registration and for also participating in this research, because, well, it is a nice work, but still left some questions. Well, this is more or less my story to tell. Once again, I'm very happy with Josef's discussion. And I think now, protocol asks that I give back to Rossella, I guess, for a few last words, perhaps. Anyway, Rossella, it's yours.
Perhaps may I
Well,
add?
I think I will leave. I will give the floor to our organizer for questions. I think it's more interesting if we'll have the participants to ask for clarifications or other information. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Josef, Bert, and Rossella. I think this is incredible work that you have done, and have also, conserved a lot of historical documents that are available for our IIOA community. Thank you so much for all your effort. So the next step, we are going to start the Q&A session. And so our Q&A session is not going to be recorded, and it's not going to be available online. So feel free to